here we go. We're recording and we're going to start the webinar. And off we go. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Austrian Wine Time Masterclass with Rudi Pichler and the next generation of Pichler estate shepherds, Teresa. Rudi Jr. is not with us today, but with us in spirit. My name is Antoinette Londejean from Cork and Fork in Washington, D.C. We are a premium wine store founded by a multi-generational flying winemaker originally from Champagne, France. I am absolutely delighted to introduce today's producer, Rudi Pichler Wines. The Pichler estate is a family-owned business with focus on creating wines in a sustainable manner to continue the winemaking tradition onto the following generations. This concept of bringing the story of each individually farmed, hand-harvested single plot of land is brought to the consumer as a whole through the expression of terroir in each bottle of Pichler wine. This precise method of terroir expression is done successfully, vintage after vintage, due to the Pichler idea of being a wine caretaker instead of a winemaker, shifting the emphasis to the product of nature. For those joining us live, we'd love to hear from you. Place your questions in the Q&A and we will get to them time allowing. Since our guests are joining us live from Austria, quite a few hours ahead of us here in the United States, we will move immediately into the presentation. Teresa, Rudi, please, whenever you're ready, introduce yourselves and this amazing winery.
Thank you, Antoinette. And
thank you.
Welcome and good afternoon and good evening
here in Austria. It's 11 p.m. here in Austria, so yeah, we have a glass of wine here, of course. I bet you too. Yeah.
Beginning with the very recent history, Teresa is a very young mother, and I'm a very young grandpa.
Since 3.5 months.
And our family started, and here I want to say thank you to Antoinette. You made a very good introduction. You already have said almost all about us. But our family started here in Wösendorf. It's in the middle of the Wachau Valley in 1731. And it was then a very small agriculture farm with pigs, cows, and some vineyards. And then it grew up until it is now only a winery. And yeah, regarding history, I studied economics, and after a visit in California and working there in Napa Valley for 3 weeks, I decided not to become a manager or a banker, but to come back home and becoming a wine caretaker. Thank you for this. The idea was, to me, to respect what I have got from my parents, very old vineyards. And I can remember when in 1990, I came back home, I started to renew all, because my father didn't see any child, we have 3 children, to come back, and so he did not invest any more, and the vineyards broke down and all the systems broke down. And when I decided to take over, I started to renew. And I started with one very old vineyard, and I put out all the systems, but not the vines. And the people in our small village talked about me. The studied guy comes home and got crazy. Why did why did he not use a caterpillar to put all away? At this time, nothing is there.
We'll just ask for a little bit of patience as we get this sorted out. Rudi, we can still hear you, but we can't see you.
Okay. And the people in the small village talked about me like becoming crazy, but it was my idea to keep the old wines, because old wines have a very good root system, and the old wines can transport the quality of the terroir, and we have terrific terroir here in Wachau, best. And that's our main aim, our goal, to bring the quality of the terroir, the quality of the soil, into our wines. And so the story started, building up, keeping old wines, renewing the systems, but keeping the old wines, and having always the focus on the vineyards and the character of the different soils. And I'm very happy that you have chosen two of my most favorite vineyards. Normally, I'm not allowed to say these are my favorite vineyards because, you know, I have 3 children, and you never ever should favor one child. And we have many different vineyards, but you have chosen 2 of my, very it's
And I know
favorite ones. Okay.
Yeah, perfect. So while we have the opportunity to take advantage of your screen not working, and I'm going to share a few photos from your website. I'm not sure if you can see the screen, even though yours is not functioning, but right now we're looking at a few photos from Kolmutz vineyard. Could you tell us a few things about what it's like to work this particular vineyard and what makes it unique or special?
Okay, sorry, Antoinette. This is not Kolmutz. You should go
a little bit down.
Okay. Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I see. I understand now. Wow. Okay. So what you can't see the screen. So let's just work from this point. Here we go. Here's the Kolmutz. Got it.
No, this is Achleiten.
This is Kolmutz.
This is Kolmutz.
Yeah.
Great.
And here you can see the small village of Wösendorf. You can see the river Danube. And here you can see the heart of Kolmutz. Kolmutz. Here we have the one of our parcels in Kolmutz. You know, Wachau is like Burgundy. It's some very small parcels, and here we are in the heart of Kolmutz, which is, to my opinion, a Grand Cru. The stone walls, more than 1,000 years old, were built by monks. And here we have a perfect combination of very old soil. This was created by nature 370 millions of years ago. And the vines are 50 to 75 years old. And this is what is fascinating to me, to have these old wines. I'm 56 years old, you know, these wines are older than me. And they have gone through a natural selection, frost, hail, very hot summers, but they survived and they have built a good communication with the soil. And they are able to bring the quality of the very poor soil into the wine. And that's what is the character of our wines.
So we will scroll down to, and I'll allow the pronunciation to be done on your end. We'll scroll down through all of these different single vineyards, since your emphasis is really on single vineyard bottlings. Can you tell us a little bit about this winery, or this plot, sorry?
This is Kirchweg. Kirchweg means the road to the church. In the very end of the picture, there's the church of St. Michael, which was established 987. And all the people of Wösendorf, our village, with still 380 people living in this village, very small, had to go to church to St. Michael. That's the name of the vineyard. And this is a very special vineyard because, to my opinion, there are only 2 Grand Crus in the plain. And what you can see here is our vineyards here planted with the Danube. The vineyards behind are planted against the Danube. That means planting against the river is a region where there can be flood. And if the vineyards are flooded, you have the sand of the river. Here in the front of the picture, the vineyards, the vines are not planted with against the river, they are planted with the river. That means it's a very special situation. We have not the sand of the river, but we have all the rocks being brought down from heavy rains from the upper laying vineyards like Hochrhein and Kolmitz.
But but that's just a little spot in Kirchweg. Kirchweg is a very big single vineyard, but just about 1.2 hectares are for us Grand Cru with this special soil.
Understood. And this might be a wonderful opportunity to understand or to hear about not only what makes a vineyard a Grand Cru status, but also the quality obviously has to be higher, but how does one go about petitioning the wine board to allow that vineyard to be Grand Cru status?
Antoinette, it's only my thinking of.
It's not officially, that's just for us.
Understood. Let's move on to the following vineyard here.
This is Hochrhein.
Okay.
Hochrhein is just beside of Kolmitz to the western part. And it's, yeah, this is a very good photo. The one before would have been better. Hochrhein is showing that we have very different soils in one mountain, in one hill, because in Hochrhein we have very old gneiss situation like in Kolmitz. On the other side, on the eastern side, we have less the gneiss situation, where we have stone walls on the western parts, which is to me the Grand Cru bar, is 370 millions of years old, and the eastern part is less, and less was brought in about 15,000 years ago by the last ice age. Less is great, but the rocks are greater.
And then we have this beautiful parcel here.
Yeah. This is Achleiten. And Achleiten is in Weißenkirchen. My mother was born in Weißenkirchen, and she brought in the first parcel of Achleiten in Weißenkirchen. And meanwhile, we have 5 parcels there, and all are laying in the western part. And you can see here, there are many rocks, and we have there, very old wines and rocks, and this is, to me, the most spectacular interpretation of wine growing in a very, very poor soil. We have yields about 2,000, 2,500 kilos per hectare. And it's not the concentration, it's the complexity of these wines.
So yield, I'm glad you spoke about yield, because yield management is a big focus for those who are creating quality wines. And there was a really good picture here where we see each individual vine, and we see how you're trellising them. And it looks like you might have some irrigation pipes going along. Could you take a moment to explain to us how, as a winemaker, you choose to tie your vines, how you choose to whether or not to irrigate, and generally what vineyard management really means for you as far as a sustainable winemaker?
Irrigation was built up in the late 17th, in the beginning of the 80s, by very foreseeing personalities. Josef Jamek, for example. We have here I know the figures of Wösendorf, we have here 485 liters a year. And this is a very dry zone. And irrigation is not to higher the yields, but to help to survive the vines in very dry situations. And I really don't like to have irrigation too early, only in a very emergency situation. Many people are starting irrigation even now because it was too dry. I think this is good for the vines because the vines should go deeper. Irrigation is only necessary if the grapes are here and, maybe the vines there is a special situation. If it's too dry, the vine is killing the grapes by bringing the juice back. So the vine will survive, but the children not. Mm-hmm. So this is the point where I say irrigation is okay, but not too early.
And over time, especially in the last decade or so, have you noticed a more persistent need for irrigation, or have you noticed any changes in your climate, anything out of the usual?
This is a very good question. Thank you, Antoinette. Climate is changing. And I think I know only one man in the world who does not recognize this. I think it was sometimes a president.
Yeah.
And to be honest, climate is changing, but it's not only getting hotter, it's getting more extreme. Remembering my time as a vintner, when I started as a child, always growing up with this, 1980, we had a very bad year. It was frost. 1983, it was very hot. 1986, it was a perfect year. 1987 was a normal year. 1989 was very wet and cold. 1990 was one of the most perfect vintages I know. Then coming back to the last decades, starting with 2000 was very good. 2002, cold, heavy floods. 2004, cold. 2005, it was difficult. 2006, a perfect year. 2007, almost beloved year for many people. To me, too simple. 2008, cold. 2009, warm. 2010, very cold. We put down the yields to 30% to get really a good vintage. And this, I may say, there's no bad vintage. There are only lazy vintners. You have to get a feeling for the vintage and you have to act. This is a main and a very important thing of our philosophy, not to react, but to act, to get a feeling and to act. So we put down in these years, in these cold years, the yield down, 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 to get a perfect balance in the grapes. 2010, 2011, a hot year which could not be managed by many people. I thought it over, and in 2011, I had the idea to stomp the grapes by processing, because we make maceration. This was my first input into the winemaking processing, because when I was a young boy, we had a wooden press and the processing lasted up to 24 hours. And so we started stomping the grapes by feet, because I love maceration. And in former times we destamped and then we made maceration. And stomping the grapes is much more sensitive. And to stomp the grapes, to get out the juice, to make, to start the natural enzymes is very important to us. Because I like the tannins of the skin of the berries. Because in the skin of the berries, there are most informations of the single vineyards, of the terroir, of the soil. And the skin of the berries is 90% of the information of the single vineyards, of the terroir, of the soil. And the skin of the berries is 90% of the information of the single vineyards, of the terroir, of the soil. And the skin of the berries is 90% of the information of the single vineyards, of the terroir, of the soil. And the skin of the berries is 90% of the information of the single vineyards, of the terroir, of the soil. And the skin of the berries is 90% of the information of the single vineyards, of the terroir, of the soil. And the skin of the berries is 90% of the information of the single vineyards, of the terroir, of the soil. And the skin of the berries is 90% of the information of the single vineyards, of the terroir, of the soil. And the skin of the berries is 90% of the information of the single vineyards, of the terroir, of the soil. And the skin of the berries is 90% of the information of the single vineyards, of the terroir, of the soil. And the skin of the berries is 90% of the information of the single vineyards, of the terroir, of the soil. And the skin of the berries is 90% of the information of the single vineyards like the skin of the human being. It's very big, you know. It's not the juice, it's the skin. Going,
yep, sorry.
yeah. Okay, Antoinette.
Okay, so we're just going to pop into your wine section here to give a nice backdrop as we taste the wines. And so you probably have the list of wine in front of you that we will be sampling. Unfortunately, sharing my screen, I don't have access to that. Are we starting with the Riesling or?
No, we have 3 Grüner Veltliner.
Okay, great, perfect. So I'll just pop into this section. And which is our first wine for the evening?
You have chosen 3 Smaragds, but we have on the screen now Grüner Veltliner Federspiel, I think.
Okay, so it would be this one?
But
no.
Wait, sorry?
we start with Grüner Veltliner Colmet Smaragd,
Okay,
2018.
perfect. So if you would like, please take us through this wine.
Yeah, we have. Okay, Teresa, it's your point.
Yeah, we've seen Colmets on the screen before. The single vineyard Colmets, very old wines and old dry stone walls. Maybe a few words about the soil profile. The soil is about 375 millions of years old, and we have a lot of gneiss in there, broken stones. So the roots from the very old wines, the wines are about 50 to 70 years old, can really go through the soil and go deeper and deeper and grab the best out of the soil. And we try to get this soil type of Colmet at least into the bottle. Colmet is to us, I think, the most mineralic wine. Yeah, because we have also a lot of magnesium, mangan, and iron in the soil. And when you taste it now, I think you can really smell and taste the minerality. 2018, the vintage was not a normal vintage, I would say. I can really good remember because we started harvest at the 22nd of August. That's not really normal in Austria. Usually we start harvest in the end of September or something like that. But yeah, my dad talked about climate change and we have to adapt, and you have to make the best out of it. And when the berries are ready, you have to harvest them. And in 2018, it was like that. So physiological ripeness of the Federspiel single vineyards was there. And so we started. I got sunburned about 2 to 3 times in this year at harvest, but well, it was worth it.
It's a absolutely beautiful wine, and we're talking about climate. We're talking about how you manage grape yields in cooler years. What's your approach, other than an early vintage or an early harvest, to manage the vineyard in hotter years like 2018? And do you acidify your wine? Is acidification allowed in your region of Austria? And I generally am trying to understand or get you to explain really your philosophy when it comes to winemaking choices as a whole.
Thank you for this question, because this is very important to us. What we try in hot years is, and what we do is we keep all the leaves outside to have shadows for the berries, for the grapes. And we are only putting out all leaves inside to guarantee circulation. Because if you have sun on the grapes, then you have in hot years too much phenolics in the skin of the berries, and then we cannot make maceration. And so this is a very complex system, and you need very well-educated workers to make this. And I think we are coming up now in the terraced vineyards with canopy management up to 2,000, 2,500 hours per hectare a year. If you're working with a tractor and a plane, not regarding anything, you have 280 hours, days a year, hours, sorry. And so this is, Antoinette, what we are trying to getting the feeling what the plant, what the vine wants. You don't want to get sunburn. And the other thing is, Teresa told you, we started in 2018 harvesting the first parcels for Grüner Veltliner Federspiel. This is why, not to get lower alcohol, but we have very old parcels also for Federspiel. And they were ripe and they were balanced. And acidity is not a thing what we are really regarding only in respect that we are not having a too high malic acidity. Because I always want to have wines which are balanced. I don't want to make malolactic. I love Merceau, I love Montrachet, but this is a very difficult, very different region. There is wood, we don't need wood. I mean barrels. Because the bones for our wines are the stones, are the rocks. And I need maceration because I want to have the character of the soil into the wine. Sometimes our wines in a very young state cannot get through the proof commission because the proof, the tasting people there, state proof, you know, cannot accept that my wines, our wines, sorry, next generation, our wines have tannins, you know, but the tannins are only from the skin of the berries, and the character is coming from the soil. And maybe one more sentence, I'm not regarding the temperature of fermentation. Our wines are fermenting 18 to 25 degrees. That means we have not the flavors of peach iced tea, but the flavors of the wine which are coming out of the vineyard.
Wonderful, thank you so much. And For Pete, who asked a question on what wine we were starting with, sorry, I was unable to answer you, but I hope this this answered your question. And just to catch everyone up, when you're macerating white grapes like Grüner Veltliner, the emphasis of having the highest quality grape quality is underlined, especially when you're making a white wine that does not undergo malolactic fermentation and is not subject to oak aging, because if you have grapes that are not in pristine and perfect condition, there's nowhere to hide those flaws. So by macerating your grapes, Rudi, in this manner, you're really putting the grape quality at the front of everybody's line of sight. And there's nothing to hide here. This wine is a perfect expression of these soils. And I'm really looking forward to tasting the next wine. Could you remind us, please, which is the second wine we'll be tasting?
It's 2018 Achleiten.
Grüner Veltliner.
Right, perfect. Okay, well, please take us through this wine.
Yeah, we talked about Achleiten before. Achleiten is, a really, really steep vineyard, the western part of the Achleiten. There is also a southern part. Achleiten is a very big single vineyard in the Wachau Valley. It has almost 22 hectares. That's really big for Wachau. But like my dad also explained before, on almost all hills and single vineyards in the Wachau Valley, there are different soil types. And for Achleiten, it's like that on the southern part, you have a little bit of fleurs or sand, and also terraces where you can drive a tractor. But our parts of Achleiten are on the western part, and this is very, very steep, and you cannot drive a tractor or any machine there. It's just work by hand, and there are a lot of big rocks. We did soil profiles for all our single vineyards, and we have a professional for this who really digs out the soil profile of the soil. And it took him, I think, 32 times to dig this soil profile out of Achleiten, because there are such big rocks there. So this single vineyard is very special to us, and in my opinion, also one of the best single vineyards for white wine, Grüner Veltliner and Riesling, I would say all over the world. Vintage is also 2018, so same as for Grüner Veltliner Kolmetz, we tasted before.
This wine it's amazing how different already the first two wines are. Very often we understand that winemakers or vineyard owners associate different personality types to their single plot bottlings. Would you define this as a more elegant or a more expressive or a more introverted style of Grüner? Or how would you describe this particular wine?
For me, it's really interesting because it does not really matter if it's Grüner or Riesling, because after some years of aging, and our wines can age very, very well for Smaragd wines, they can age up to 35 years or more. And after some times, I mean, after 10 years, I would say, you cannot really say if it's a Grüner Veltliner or a Riesling, because the soil type gets really through the wine, and you can just say, this is really Achleiten, or this is Kolmetz.
And the classification of smaragd, where does that come from and what does it mean for the consumer?
Okay, it's my part. It was a great idea to bring together some old men and Vinea Wachau was founded in 1983, yes. The old men were the great old men of Wachau. It was Janek, Hirzberger, Prager, and Willi Schwengler, the director of Domain Wachau now. And they created the idea to protect the region of Wachau. The very small region, we are working here 1,350 hectares. And there are about more than 900 people owing this. You see, it's a very small structured region. And it was 1983 that these forefathers had the idea to protect this region because there were some people who wanted to invest in Wachau. As I told you, I think I was 89 in Napa Valley, and Napa Valley had the same problem. If you create a company in Napa Valley and then you buy from Central Valley the grapes, then you can write in former times, at least I can remember, then you can write Napa Valley on the label, you know? And this is what these people prohibited by creating Vinea Wachau and creating the three types of wines, the very light wine Steinfeder, the medium-bodied Federspiel, and the highest class quality Smaragd, was dedicated to protect our region. And I think it worked very well. I'm thinking that it's working still, you know?
Because only the members of Vinea Wachau, and I think Vinea Wachau has now about 200 members, am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Almost every winery is a member of the Vinea Wachau in the Wachau can use these quality categories, are allowed to use them.
It is like a DOCG to me since 1983.
Mm-hmm. So we will move into the last wine. Teresa, if you could remind me which wine that is.
Sure. This is also Grüner Veltliner Achleiten Smaragd, but from a different vintage now, 2017.
Wonderful. So we have side by side 18 and 17.
Yes. Right.
And while we're getting into this last wine, you were speaking about the forefathers of the region. Review for us how winemaking has changed over the decades in the region, how your father made wine and his colleagues, and how Teresa and Rudi Jr., how your philosophy might be similar or different to that of the previous generations.
For me, when my brother and me, we decided a few years ago to take over the winery. Yeah, I also started to study economics in Vienna, and then I changed to international wine business to study international wine business because I worked for my dad in the vineyards, and then I decided, well, that's a really nice thing to work in the nature and then do tastings, meet people, talk to people about our business, our family-owned business. And yeah, that's what is my part now, the export, because we are exporting into 24 countries now. That's, yeah, great what my father did, because he took over about 3 hectares from his dad and expanded to almost, yeah, we work 12.5 hectares now, and he started to export our wine into now 24 countries. And yeah, my brother also said, yeah, he wants to take over, and he's more in the cellar and do the wine producing and also vineyard management. And it works very well. And we have the same opinion. We want to weitermachen. To
continue.
Yeah, thanks. We want to continue what our father started. I don't want to change philosophy because I love the philosophy of my dad. I don't want to follow any trends. Yeah, we want to continue what our dad started. That's the main fact.
And Rudi, for you, if you could speak to the previous generations and the winemaking styles that existed, and how they've changed over time, how the approach to using vineyard sprays have changed over time.
Yeah, Antoinette, again, a very good question. I have had always my own ideas, not only working sustainable, but investing into people, not into machines. Then I was the first who built a modern cellar in World Heritage Wachau. It was 2004. And I've only made my way, and my life philosophy with my 3 children. The younger daughter is making her master in chemistry now, but she will not be involved in the winery. And was that my children get a good education. What they are doing with their life is on their own. My way was only this way. What I do, I want to do in a really balanced way, not in a perfect way, in a balanced way. And this evolution I made by myself, finding the processing, not regarding the press, to have spectacular wines. I have wines which can live 30, 40 years old, you know? And I'm very thankful that there are enough people around the world who are not only drinking nosy wines. This is a very great impact for all what I do. I want to show authentic wines. I want to create authenticity, and I want to have identity in my wines. And that's it. And just a few words now. All these 3 wines, I think your customers can taste these wines too.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
They are tasting them with us.
You can see now the difference of the vintages and of the vineyards. But maybe you can feel now what I mean with stamping, maceration, the wines have still tannins. Thinking of a barrel tasting of Barolos. 10 times more, but this is the first step into Rudi Pichler, you know. You have to regard and you have to accept it. What we are drinking now is 2011, 2013. 2015 is starting now. These wines are very young, but let me tell you this, a good wine always have to be good. But the very great wines need time to develop. And I think these wines are worth to wait a little bit. You can get to know them now. But if you wait a little bit, some years, then yeah, you get the whole universe of what we are doing.
Very well said. We've covered so much in the last 7 minutes alone, but before we move any further, and I know we're really short on time, tell us please about the 2017 vintage, so we're really able to visualize the difference between the 18 and 17.
Yeah, 17 was, like we love to say, an easy vintage because there were not really big challenges. Yeah, it was not a hot vintage. It was not a cold vintage. We had not too much rains. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, well.
So completely different to 2018. 2018 was, like I said, we had to manage this hot vintage. Yeah, that you cannot taste the hot vintage in the bottle. That's very important to us.
Well, as they say, the best things are worth fighting for. So it sounds like the 2018 has a good chance of having great longevity in the bottle. So we're coming on the end of the hour here, and we really appreciate everyone being so patient with us, given the technical difficulties that we've experienced. And thank you.
Sorry.
We're so sorry. I don't know why it does not work.
We're just so honored and so happy to have you both as guests here. So we'll wrap up the event. We've tasted the beautiful wines. We had the amazing opportunity to hear your thoughts and perspective on winemaking and viticulture as a whole. Are there any final thoughts you would like to share with us tonight?
I think first of all, thank you for your hosting. It was perfect.
Yeah, thank you, Antoinette and John.
And yeah, we love
like
to do
say,
this. And sorry, John.
No, I just wanted to say happy birthday, Antoinette.
Oh, happy birthday.
Yeah.
Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
On 15th of May.
No, 14th.
14, yes.
Okay.
We have different time here.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, thank you. I mean, truly, it is the best gift of all to have been able to spend an hour with you. And again, just to reiterate to those who are with us live, that it's important. The takeaway here is that these wines are absolutely incredible. They're some of the best coming out of Austria, but also to really give credit to Rudi for stepping out of the box, for going against the grain, for really leading the way of sustainable winemaking and quality premium winemaking in a manner that wasn't really seen in the 1990s and early 2000s. And we're very fortunate to have hosted 22 Austrian wine classes in the last 28 days, I believe. And it's clear that the newer generations are coming together, and we're seeing more and more amazing wines, but the Pichler wines will always be the top coming out of the region. So thank you for joining us, Rudi, Teresa. I look forward to spending time with you in the many decades to come and tasting each vintage of all the wines that we can get our hands on. And John, we're looking at you to bring those into us here in Washington, D.C. in the States. And
Absolutely.
I'll say my final remarks, and then we'll go ahead and end the meeting for all. So I'm just going to stop share here. And I will say my final remarks. So thank you for joining us today, Rudi, Teresa, and John. And for those viewing, John is the representative of these wines with the importer distributor Weinbo. For those viewing, we appreciate your interest in the great wines of Austria. We encourage you to visit our website calendar at corkandpork.co to view the upcoming Austrian wine events with some of the region's greatest producers, such as our guest this evening. So once again, thank you so much. And I'm going to end the meeting for all. And Rudi, Teresa, I wish you a lovely evening. Thanks for staying up with us tonight.
Yes,
You too,
thank you.
Antoinette. Thank you so much.
Good night, guys.
Thank
See
you.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.